What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? I'm Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so today's video, we're going to be talking about X-Men number 8 by Gerry Duggan and Javier Pina. And in this video, we are going to be breaking down Sync's revelation about something that's been going on behind the scenes since Gerry Duggan's X-Men began and why this action has led to him wanting to leave the X-Men team. And just as important as that, what the Captain Krakoa technology that Forge created was originally meant for, and we're also going to discuss how Cyclops can potentially steer MODOK and AIM in a different direction. We're going to talk about all this and more right now, but first, if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, hit that subscribe button. I post multiple videos throughout the week, plus live stream the Blerd Cave every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. So hit that bell button, that way you don't miss anything. Also, if you enjoy the video, Hulk smash that like button. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about X-Men number 8.
You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
But the first thing I really want to talk about is MODOK and AIM. Now, a lot of people will probably be confused as to why MODOK is on the X-Men's radar right now. Well, part of that is because we can't forget that Orchis, the organization that is now kind of the chief big bad in the X-Men's corner of the Marvel Comics universe, this anti-mutant organization that is trying to ensure that mutants die out and that humanity thrives. We can't forget that organization has its roots in AIM. Going back to Jonathan Hickman's House of X, when we were first introduced to the Orchis organization, it was revealed that AIM makes up for at least 31% of Orchis's entire personnel. The reason why I bring all this up is because MODOK features very heavily in this issue, and MODOK and AIM go hand in hand. Not only do they go hand in hand, but MODOK has been the leader of AIM off and on pretty much for the last few decades. MODOK is basically going to cruise ships, introducing a virus that messes with a human being's fight or flight response, and essentially creating a rage virus a la 28 Days Later. And the X-Men are showing up because they caught wind of this event due to somebody live streaming while MODOK was attacking the ship. So this is how the X-Men end up encountering MODOK. But one of the things that happens during this battle against MODOK, which I actually think is very interesting considering the fact that at a point during the fight, after Sync has borrowed Jean Grey's telepathic and telekinetic abilities once again, they end up getting the drop on MODOK while he's picking up some choice bits from the cruise ship's buffet. And Cyclops uses this as a teachable moment, having Sync help him reach into MODOK's mind, which we do end up seeing MODOK's family for the first time in a while. But this is a moment where Cyclops tries to understand exactly why MODOK does what he does. Most of these characters, with the exception of Wolverine and Sync, have had prior experience with MODOK in the past, so a lot of them tend to kind of get his MO. But Cyclops takes a moment to sit down and not just try and understand his MO, but also tries to see if he can change his mind. And MODOK totally gets where Cyclops is going, even saying that I know what you're thinking. Maybe the world is better off without a mental organism designed only for killing. Basically, you know, what his name stands for. MODOK, while technically he is human, he is modified to the point that Krakoa's rules about killing no human, they likely don't apply to MODOK. And while MODOK could very likely, in some roundabout way, find a way to come back to life, death would be a major inconvenience for him, and I think Cyclops knows this, even telling him that, what do we get if we let you live? What is the upside to us letting you walk away scot-free? Or, well, maybe not scot-free, you're still gonna go to jail, but we're not going to kill you. And of course, MODOK gives the same insight to us that he always gives us about why he does what he does. It's because of science. It's all in an effort to progress human knowledge, to breach the boundaries of what's possible. But it's here that Cyclops gives an alternative. He says, why make monsters at all? Why not make angels? And it's here that MODOK reveals the reason why he doesn't bother trying to make things that could help humanity rather than harm them is because it's easier to control the things that hurt other people. The things that could help other people tend to have more agency and that they're a lot more difficult to control. He's a bit of a control control freak, so it wouldn't be hard to believe that he feels this way. Now, earlier in the comic, MODOK does throw out a jab about how if the X-Men don't leave him alone, he'll come and jack up their treehouse because, he knows where they live. But now Cyclops is throwing back a threat of his own that if MODOK doesn't make restitution for what he has done to the people on that cruise ship, and very likely also maybe think about changing his ways, because I believe Cyclops is also keenly aware that AIM is a part of Orchis in some way, shape, form, or fashion, that they have assets from AIM that are working alongside Orchis. He's probably likely also nodding at this as well, that if MODOK doesn't turn it around, that he's gonna come back for him and that he knows where MODOK lives. Now, we don't get an immediate answer as to what MODOK is going to do, but something tells me that the next time we see MODOK, at least in the X-Men's corner of things, maybe he'll have a different perspective, who knows. Once again, he's a mental organism designed only for killing. I don't think that he's ever gonna change his stripes, but it would be interesting to see if maybe somewhere down the road in the X-Men's battle against Orchis, maybe they might have just made a reluctant ally. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about here too is, and this is kind of just in conjunction with that, is that the whole thing with Captain Krakoa. So we learn in this that Captain Krakoa was not meant for Cyclops. Cyclops was never intended to be Captain Krakoa. It's just that he was seen being publicly killed by pretty much everybody, and they really needed to make a move fast, and they just decided to use this experimental battle armor to hide his identity going forward so that people wouldn't learn the truth about mutant resurrection. This power armor was actually meant for mutants who aren't in one or more of the major mutant classifications. Now, for those who don't know, there's actually 6 different classifications of mutants. Those being Omega level, which is the ones we always talk about. These are the ones whose power are literally unmatched. And that's not just among mutants, that's also among humans and metahumans and other types of special enhanced individuals. And their power literally has no upper limit. There's also alpha level mutants who, while not as powerful as Omega level mutants in terms of potential, their power is something that can be directly applied in a combat situation. And then there's beta level mutants who, technically, they're not that much different from an alpha level mutant, but their X gene comes with some kind of a flaw, usually a small flaw, something that might manifest its way in the form of a very minuscule physical deformity. One example would be something like Gambit's eyes, which are typically black with a red sclera, or maybe in the way that Sabretooth's appearance, while he doesn't look abnormal exactly, he does tend to have a more feral look to him than your average human being. And you could even make the same case for Wolverine. Now, in the case of gamma mutants have a flaw as well with their powers, but their flaw sticks out a lot more and is something that makes it impossible for them to blend in with normal humans. We're talking about characters like Nightcrawler, Blink, even Angel, when he's in his Archangel form, could technically classify as a gamma level mutant, but his is actually more of a beta level categorization because Angel can go back and forth between looking normal or being blue, though his wings can also be kind of thrown out as something that would make it difficult for him to blend in, but he has found a way to make himself blend in. So yeah, his classification is kind of all over the place with that. But typically mutants like Blink and Nightcrawler, those are very good classifications of gamma level mutants. Delta mutants, their powers don't really have any flaws to them, but their powers aren't as strong as alpha, delta, or even gamma level mutants. And most of the time, delta mutants don't even know that they're mutants. Their power is sometimes something that doesn't just regularly manifest itself. Characters like Forge and Domino are very good examples of this because their powers are something that you don't actually physically see. But a good case for this was made in Death of Doctor Strange, X-Men and the Black Knight #1, where it was revealed that Dane Whitman's daughter, Jax Chopra, who also operates as the Black Knight, she was revealed to be a mutant, and she has never really known herself as being a mutant. I'm not saying that she is a Delta level mutant, but I'm just using that as an example. Sometimes mutants don't know they're mutants. And then of course you have have epsilon level mutants. These are mutants whose X gene either resulted in a power that is not a combative power, it's not something that would be useful in a fight, it's probably not even much of a power to begin with. The best example of an epsilon mutant is typically Artie. You know, the little pink kid that had all the weird tumors all over his body. Point of the matter is, this battle suit is meant for epsilon level mutants. Mutants who can't fight back the way Cyclops or Sunfire or Rogue or Polaris can. This is meant for them so that when Nimrod comes knocking, they will be able to fight and defend themselves, that people will be able to fight back for Krakoa and stop those who would try to destroy it. Not only that, but Forge has Cyclops beta testing this suit because he also wants to know how far the suit can go. And Forge is also no fool. He recognizes that at some point in time, humanity will likely come up with a suit very similar to it, and he wants to be prepared in case that technology that he's creating is replicated, something that he is used to considering that he created the mutant power nullifier, and that was something that fell into the hands of one of the X-Men's oldest villains, Henry Peter Gyrich. Not only that, but we do learn in this that Forge has no interest in joining the X-Men. He doesn't want to be a part of it. Not because he doesn't believe in it, it's because he feels that his attention is better suited elsewhere. He also knows that Krakoa is not a finished product. It's something that's still growing, and that right now the work that he needs to do is too important to have his attention divided between being on the X-Men and then doing what he does for X-Force, and then also doing what he does for the Quiet Council as a whole. He would literally be spinning too many plates, and even though Forge is a good multitasker, he also recognizes that he's just not the right guy for the job. One of the things he does is he suggests that if Cyclops needs a technologist, he suggests the character Bling. I find this very interesting that he suggested the character Bling for a multitude of reasons. She is a genius level intellect. This is something that we talked about in my video for Bling that I put out last year. She is handy with computers. She also knows how to hack and manipulate computer systems and software. And not only that, she's also a very handy engineer. Now, while technology isn't a part of her X gene the way it is for Forge, she's still good enough to be able to do the things that Cyclops would potentially need her to do. The other reason I find this interesting is because she was one of the 10 mutants who was up for the X vote. Now, as we know, Jerry Duggan has mentioned in the past that the X-Men are going to have a rotating roster. Now, while we know that Firestar was the character who seemingly had the most votes of all of the different potential characters who could have been voted onto the X-Men, we also know that Jerry Duggan likes to keep around some of the mutants that were a part of the X vote that didn't make it. And something tells me, just like how he kind of tried to keep Forge and Tempo around because those were characters that he lobbied for in the X vote, Tempo, more specifically, is the one that he listed as his personal vote. Something tells me that Bling was another character who he either voted for or at the very least was more interested in than some of the other characters that were put up for the vote. I have a sneaky suspicion he's going to find a way to have Bling hang around the X-Men regardless of whether or not she gets voted on. Now, the other thing I want to talk about too is the fact that, speaking of the X vote, we know that since this is going to be a rotating roster, this means one character is probably going to have to leave. Now, if Firestar is the one who did actually win the vote, we won't know until I believe sometime in June who actually won, but something tells me that they're not going to kick Sunfire off the team if they bring Firestar on. It would be weird to have two people who have vaguely similar powers. I mean, yes, Firestar, she controls fire, but it's more in the form of microwaves, whereas Sunfire actually controls legit fire, but that's neither here nor there. Something tells me somebody's going to have to leave.
Oh, crap. Well, one of us is gonna have to change.
But regardless of all that, somebody is going to have to leave, and one of the characters who's actually trying to leave is Synch. Now, here's the question. Why is he trying to leave the X-Men? Why does he want out all of a sudden? Well, one of the reasons why is because of Lara Kinney, aka Wolverine. During this issue, we see that Synch and Wolverine do start to have a telepathic heart-to-heart about their time in the vault, revealing some details about their relationship. Wolverine wants to know exactly how long did it take for her to warm up to him when they were in the vault, and he reveals that it took a couple of 100 years, 217, before they had their first kiss. And this is a moment where Lara starts to realize that, yeah, maybe there is something between us, and that she does actually respect that he held out for her for that long. I mean, granted, it wasn't like he had a whole lot of choice. It's been very fairly established that both Darwin and Synch are heterosexual males. It basically kind of limited their options. It wasn't like he could just go for somebody else. We also learned that during the X vote, Synch didn't vote for himself. He voted for Laura. Matter of fact, even going as far as to saying a lot of people are going to vote for him because of what he did in the vault. But the person he wanted to be there is Wolverine, because she was the one who sacrificed herself so that he could get out, and he feels that she's perfectly suited to be an X-Man. Though he does make a Freudian slip and say that she's the one that I want, but then kind of corrects himself and means that she's the one I want on the X-Men. But regardless of that, his selflessness got him voted on anyway. Now, getting aside from that, that's also part of the problem, because he feels like Laura is going to have to live up to a ghost of a person that she can't possibly live up to. That person doesn't exist anymore as far as he's concerned. He doesn't want to burden her with the memories that could potentially change how she feels about him for better or worse. He feels like it would be incredibly unfair to her, and it's difficult for Synch to be around her, because if he's not thinking about her, he's thinking about something else that he's done, and it's something that I was incredibly surprised by. Remember, previously we talked about the fact that Ben Urich had been revealed as having his mind wiped by a telepath. Now, initially, I thought that maybe it was Emma Frost who did this, or even potentially Charles Xavier. It actually wasn't either of them. It was Synch. When Synch revealed that his power allowed him to borrow the abilities of mutants who were no longer around him, it was revealed that Synch with Jean Grey went to Ben Urich and wiped Ben's memory, because he was worried that what Ben was going to do was going to mess up everything for Krakoa, and he proved his ride or die status, that he was willing to lay it all on the line, that he was willing to do any kind of dirt whatsoever to protect Krakoa. And that's exactly why he feels he needs to leave, because he did something that was incredibly reactionary. He didn't try and figure out what Ben Urich was actually going to do, and now he feels he's made one of the greatest mistakes in the history of bad mistakes when it comes to human and mutant relations. Now, why does Synch know this? Well, he knows this, because not only did he read Ben's mind, but he also kept Ben Urich's notebook. Now, when he hands it over to Cyclops, he says it's a rough read, but not for the reasons that you're very likely thinking. Because when he shows it to Cyclops, it reveals Ben wasn't going to expose mutant kind the way that Cyclops and the Quiet Council had feared. I mean, yeah, he was gonna expose that the X-Men have the ability to resurrect themselves. However, he wasn't going to do it in a way that was all Fox News fear-mongering style. He even had headlines that he was shopping, like the miracle of the mutants and the deathless X-Men. But more importantly, he also had the immortal X-Men, which is, going to be one of the upcoming titles that Kieran Gillen is going to be writing. That's going to be focusing on the Quiet Council. Synch reveals that Ben wasn't afraid of mutants. He didn't fear mutants. He didn't think that they were some plague upon humanity, and he didn't think that they were out to get them. He didn't think the same way that people like Omega Sentinel and Orcus and Xeno do. He wasn't afraid of mutant kind. He wanted to embrace them, and he wanted to extend a message of not just peace and tolerance, but acceptance and love, and marveling at the fact that these miracles exist among them. And this has broken Synch. He feels as though he's made a grievous error. He feels as though he messed up a potential future for mutant kind, one where a guy like Ben Urich, a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, could have wrote something that might have just changed people's opinions. I mean, yeah, we notice in this that a lot of people don't really hate mutants anymore exactly the way that they used to, like back in the 80s and 90s, back when Chris Claremont was on this. Humans on the whole don't really hate mutants. They don't really fear mutants the way they used to. It's actually just smaller groups of people who hate and fear mutants these days. And it seems like, well, yeah, they were on the road. They were really getting they were right there. They were just about to cross the finish line. And now Synch feels like he's messed that up for everybody. And that's why he doesn't want to be an X-Man anymore. Now, the fact that Ben Urich was in fact an ally should come as no surprise to anyone. Even just the idea that he would expose the X-Men in such a way that he would expose mutants in such a way to fearmonger and demonize mutant kind? No, he's not the type of guy to do that, and he's also not the type of person to sell someone out like that. Look no further than Daredevil number 164. Back in 1980, Ben Urich famously figured out that Matt Murdock was Daredevil, and he could have written an entire expose doxing Daredevil and exposing who he was to the entirety of the world. And to be fair, he did actually write an article that would do just that, but he realized that Daredevil being outed in that way would make it so that Daredevil could no longer exist, that he would make Matt Murdock's job as Daredevil borderline impossible. Now, we would later learn that him having his identity out wouldn't really matter. In the long run, he would still struggle in some ways, and yes, I know it's Daredevil's identity versus demonizing mutant kind, but I'm using this as an example because in the case of Daredevil, Ben Urich realized what he was doing and he didn't post the article. Now, that was something that actually would have harmed someone. This message could have actually helped someone, and I honestly believe that Ben Urich was an ally in this. When Jerry Duggan brought him on to the X-Men series with X-Men number 1, Ben Urich wasn't antagonizing Cyclops. He never did. He even told him what he was going to do and even gave Cyclops a chance to give some input and insight on the matter. I don't think that Ben Urich was ever the bad guy in this, and I don't think anyone else really thought so either, but I have seen some instances where people legitimately thought that Ben Urich was going to sell out Krakoa. And in regards to Synch, I don't think Synch did something terribly wrong. I think this actually can be walked back. Synch was trying to protect his people, and that's not a terrible thing, but this isn't something that can't be undone. Synch can put those memories back and have Ben Urich write the story as he originally was going to. However, I don't think that that's actually the problem. Whether or not Ben Urich gets the memories back or writes a story, I don't think that matters. What I think matters here is the fact that Synch did something without thinking it through. He didn't process out all the options, which is highly uncharacteristic for Synch, and that is cause for Synch to worry about his leadership and his decision making, because in the past, Synch has proved that he is a strong leader, that he is able to make the tough choices, and that he's always able to make the smart decisions, regardless of what the stakes may be, even proving that he's willing to sacrifice himself for the greater good. And I think this moment legitimately scared him, that he was willing to take something away from someone and fearing the unknown the same way that humans fear mutants. He feared what humanity would do to his people, even a human who has good intentions like Ben Urich. And I think that showed a mirror to him and made him realize that, whoa, maybe I need to check myself. Now, I don't think he's actually going to be leaving the team, but they are planting a seed that Synch wants to leave, but Cyclops doesn't want him to. Cyclops realizes that Synch made a small mistake, and while yes, it may have been damaging to the future between humans and mutants, he knows and understands that Synch did this to protect his mutant brothers, sisters, and others. But that said, it does, if they do decide to, once again, rotate members out, it would kind of make sense that Synch be the one to step out. However, I don't want that to be the case. Let me make myself very clear here. I still stand by my original statement regarding the X-Men under Jerry Duggan, and I don't blame Jerry Duggan 100% for this, because some onus is also on the fans. While yes, this is the whitest X-Men has been since they first appeared in 1963, a little bit of the onus of this is also on the fans as well. Now, while yes, Jerry Duggan and Pepe Larraz did pick these characters, and likely Marvel Editorial also had a hand in this as well, the core characters of the team are, of course, Cyclops, Jean, Rogue, Wolverine, Synch, and Sunfire, with Synch and Sunfire being the only two people of color on the team, and the person that the fans voted in was literally one of the whitest X-Men they could have picked in Polaris. Even though she is technically part Jewish, she's still one of the whiter characters in the entirety of the X-Men. They only could have picked a whiter character if they would have picked somebody like Angel. But once again, the onus is on both sides of the fence. Yes, Marvel could have put more people of color on this team, but also the fans had an opportunity to vote a person of color on this team, and they chose not to. The majority chose to push Polaris because of a TV show, or they thought that this meant she was going to be in the movies. And with that being said as well, I don't think that a character of color should be moved off the team to make room for another character, especially to add yet another white character when the roster is already so white as it is. But that's just me. That's just my 2 cents. Hey, I know some people are going to be mad. Some people are going to disagree. Some people are probably going to stop Carter to Comic Book Shop and complain complain to him about me when he doesn't give a flying. But anyways, let me know what you thought about X-Men number 8. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.